Attorney Sharifa Tharp. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the comments now so that I may answer your questions. So, I have a great topic for you today, and I want to talk about an alternative to other forms of relief. Now, when I talk about alternatives to forms of relief, I'm talking about relief that may be related to VAWA. It may be if you have been abused and you don't have any relatives here, then I would want to explore what's called the T status. T status is a form of relief that is available for individuals who have been experienced a type of abuse here. They were forced into a situation by an employer, by a spouse, by any other individual. And so a lot of people don't know about this form of relief, and unfortunately, even other attorneys overlook that form of relief, and then that person goes through life not realize or goes through living in the United States, not realizing that they can qualify for status here as the victim of trafficking based on this type of abuse that they endured. Now, abuse alone does not necessarily qualify you to get T status, but the abuse can say a lot. So, if you have not been abused by if you have been abused by a spouse, for example, then or mistreated, I want to know more. Say that no, there are different ways, different forms of relief if you have been mistreated. For example, if you've been mistreated by a US citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, then there's the option of getting VAWA. And VAWA, you'll be able to get your work permit and then move on to getting permanent residence. But what if that spouse that you were living with or who you were with in the United States was not a spouse? How or they didn't have, or they were a spouse but they weren't a citizen or they weren't a permanent resident. Are there avenues to relief there? And the answer is yes, there may be relief. Now, with trafficking, and this is where I look at the alternative, which is to get the T status as a victim of trafficking. Trafficking comes in many different forms. And yes, a spouse, yes, a boyfriend or girlfriend can also be considered traffickers. So if they, for example, they forced you to work in the house, they restricted you from leaving. They told you if you didn't comply with their demands that they were going to call ICE or get you deported. This is a form of trafficking because they're trying to get you to do something for their benefit. And they're using a type of force, even though it may not be physical force, use a coercive force, as in threatening bad consequences if you don't do this thing. And so my rule of thumb is if you are feeling stuck and or trapped in a situation, you feel like you can't get out of it, and at the same time you're being subjected to control, you're being subjected to a straight up abuse, physical abuse. But even if physical abuse isn't involved, they're doing things like telling you, scaring you, and using scare tactics to keep you doing what they want you to do, then you could qualify for T status. And the T status would allow you to gain status and a work permit in the United States for the next 4 years and the ability to apply for permanent residence. So you do have a pathway on your own to permanent residence. And this also allows your relatives. So if you have children who are under 21 and unmarried, or you are under 18 and you have parents and a sibling who is under 18, then you could qualify for this as well. So, I mean, if you're under 21, by the way, and your parents are without status or need status, they can get it too. Your sibling who is under 18 can get this status. So, it is a valuable form of relief that unfortunately not a lot of people know about. Unfortunately, not a lot of immigration attorneys screen clients for this type of relief. Oftentimes, I have had clients who have had no other option, and the T status is what saved the day and helped them to fix their status. It is an invaluable tool that I want to educate you about so that you know about this. So, if you have been in this situation or you are in this situation, you're able to empower yourself to determine whether you qualify for this T status. And remember, trafficking comes in different forms. It doesn't mean that you were tied up in a basement somewhere, you're forced or sexually assaulted. It can be labor trafficking, where an employer, not only a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, but if an employer was the one who verbally or mentally, emotionally abused you or mistreated you, if they missed out on your payments, if they gave you, overworked you, gave you more work than other people, if they discriminated against you, this could also qualify you to get this status here. And this is exactly what I help my clients with. Now, when you get T status, there are other benefits. Oftentimes, my clients are having a hard time because they're without status and they may be in need of services. And being the T status recipient means that you are able to get social services, you're able to get Medicaid and medical assistance without having to worry about how it's going to affect your immigration process as you go into permanent residence. So, my rule of thumb here is if you are experiencing abuse by a person, not just by a spouse, not just by a US citizen or legal permanent resident, but by anyone, and you feel trapped in the situation, like you cannot get out, this is where it's important to seek help, because I have helped clients to be able to overcome their situation and get status in the United States to be able to thrive on their own. This is a process that would be your own process. So you wouldn't have to involve the trafficker or the person who is doing this to you. So go ahead, if you want to get in touch to have a conversation about this, to determine whether this could be for you, go ahead and click on the link and we can talk. Another thing I need to let you know is that I know, as someone who knows Jamaican, I have many Jamaican clients because I myself grew up in Jamaica. I know that this is a big problem where you're recruited to come to the United States to work, or you're recruited by a loved one or a relative to come here, and they have these empty promises for you. And when you get here, you find yourself in a situation that you feel like you can't get out of. That's very common. Advertisements in the paper promising honey and bread. If you come to the US, you work in certain industries, that you will be able to get your papers, or you'll be able to get the status that you need. These are things that you first, if you haven't fallen victim to one of these, that you need to be very vigilant about. Remember that the employer has to give you your papers to work here before you can come here and work. Now, even now, you can apply for this form of relief if you have already experienced it. You can apply for this form of relief even if you're out of status, even if you cross the border without permission, and yes, even if you've worked without a permit. As a matter of fact, when we're applying for labor-based relief, where the employer was the one who did this to you, working without a permit is almost a requirement, right? Because in order to get you here without status, you had to work for the trafficker. So keep in mind that this form of relief is there. You just have to take the steps to get the help you need. And this is often an alternative to other types of relief. For example, VAWA, if your spouse is not a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, but they perpetrated abuse and forced you to do things against your will, whether that was sexual acts or labor related acts where they, had you doing the work in the house, had you taking care of their kids, then this still could be for you. As a matter of fact, the Immigration Service has changed their policies to ensure that individuals who have been subjected to this kind of abuse understand that they can qualify for T status. And all you have to do is bring yourself. Now, what documents do I need? You just have to bring yourself. Your detailed statement is sufficient. And what they do is they look at the credible evidence. I work with my clients to put this together. So all you need to do is bring yourself. I can determine whether you qualify, and then we can get started. We need your memory, we need your statement, and we can go ahead and get started. So remember that your memory, that's all we need. We need you to remember those details and to be able to relate to us so we can help you to put your statement together so the Immigration Service can understand what you went through as well. So now I'm going to answer questions because I see some questions coming in now that I've told you about this form of relief that you could possibly qualify for. And this is something that unfortunately not a lot of attorneys do screen for, and they should, because when somebody's out of options or somebody has been subjected to abuse, we should not tell them that they don't have options when this is on the table as well. And it has helped my clients. It has helped my clients. They have gone through this. And once again, as with my clients at first, they start out in a state of uncertainty and fear. But I am there with my clients all the way through. And I let them understand the process and understand what it takes once I determine they qualify. And by the end of it, they are in awe of what kind of relief they could get. Now, once approved, you can get other forms of relief as well, like medical assistance and other social services. All right, so if you applied for a US visa and get denied, will that affect the person when crossing the border? So when you're crossing the border, what they're going to be looking at is that can be a factor. What they're looking at is not only just the denial, but what's the basis of you trying to cross the border. Usually, it's do you have a valid asylum claim, and then they use their discretion to determine whether they're going to let you in and whether the court is going to process your case. So it just depends on what's in your background. How do you get the necessary documents? Through sponsorship. So it's going to depend on what kind of sponsor. Do you have a family member? Do you have an employer? And the documents associated with that is going to be based on that. What if you are no longer in the country? So if you have left the country, that's a great question. So if you have left the country, usually it's going to be, there are ways to come back, but it's going to be more dependent on whether law enforcement was involved in the process, whether you are needed to be present to continue an investigation. And so the process may be a little different. Usually, when you have been in a situation where you were overworked, you have to have stayed in the United States. And at that point, one of the requirements is that you show that you've been continuously present in the United States and that you will if you leave. And so leaving you. Getting back in is going to be dependent on, what's going on. Is there an actual case or law enforcement investigation happening because of what you're doing? Hi there, Victoria. It's nice to see you. All right. Any more questions? Go ahead, put your questions. I am here to answer questions. The week that I will be here for the live, but guess what? I will be back at around noon Monday and every day, Monday to Friday, to answer questions and also to bring great immigration topics for you. Today, I talked about getting the T status, which can serve as an alternative form of relief when you don't qualify for it. The thing is, many people don't know about it, and because of that, it they go through a lot more hardships, and they go through living in the United States, not being able to empower themselves with the T status. If I'm in New York, is it more expensive to get you to represent me? So I do have my fees now, and I do charge a flat fee for most cases. But it doesn't necessarily, because I represent clients all across the country, and it really comes down to the type of case. I don't know what other attorneys are what they're charging, and I don't know if I would be more expensive, but I do charge based on the work that my team and I will put into it. And so it's not necessarily going to be more expensive for you in New York, but it depends on what your case is. Do you do phone consultations? Absolutely. Now, if you want to schedule the consultation, go to the link in the profile, and the link in the profile is going to show you everything that you need. You can schedule your own appointments, or you can go to the website, give us a call. My phone number is all over my videos. So it's asylum. We do asylum, but it's also going to come down to what's involved in your asylum matter. Is it in immigration court, or is it? And this is where, Victoria, it's important to get a consultation, because I would have a lot of follow-up questions regarding asylum. Have you filed already? Where is your case? What have you been doing while you're in the United States? How long has it been since you came, and has a deadline passed? So go ahead, schedule the consultation. It's very valuable to start there, and I can definitely provide you the quote you need to make a decision as to whether you want to go forward with my representation. The important thing is we determine whether you can qualify, and then we get started. So your passport was taken, and so that's what was something that was happening. It may be when you are crossing the border, which they are saying that should not have happened. Officers should not be taking away people's passports, and I believe they have initiated the return of those passports to immigrants. So in regards to, a solution to that would really come down to, where did you come in? What were the circumstances? Are you going through a case right now? Were you just released from detention? Were you detained? And so forth. Yep. So they took everybody's passport. So yes, it's a widespread practice, and it should not be happening. So it's something that should not be happening. It is happening, and it is a typical thing for them to do. But they have released a statement saying this should not have happened, and they are looking at steps to return that. All right. So, any other questions? Any other immigration related questions? Go ahead and put those in the comments before I head out. It's Friday, so I hope you have something planned. I hope you do have a relaxing weekend. And we will be back on Monday to be able to answer questions and bring an immigration topic for you. So if you don't have any questions, I'm going to head out. But now is the time to go ahead, invest in yourself, make sure you're going about your process correctly, make sure you've explored your options, schedule that consultation. Go to the link in the profile, and it's going to give you all the information you need to do that. Thanks so much for the love. I appreciate you joining me today. And I hope you can continue to join me as I go ahead and I talk to you about these different immigration matters, and you ask me your questions. And thanks so much, Mia Go Madam. I will go ahead and keep that good work up. Thanks. Bye bye. Have a good day, everyone, and weekend. Oh, okay. So I see here on YouTube, I see some questions here. So I'm going to address your questions. Um, Hello, I'm doing great. If you were denied because of previous divorce decree, can it be rectified? No, if yes, absolutely. But it depends on what was the basis for the denial and why did the divorce decree come into play here. But absolutely, if the divorce decree was an issue, just maybe it was missing, and if it was missing, definitely there could be it could change everything. The divorce decree, that's a relatively minor issue to resolve. I don't know which country the divorce took place in, but it should be a relatively minor issue to address. You can always call and schedule that consultation. All right. Thanks so much. And I will go ahead and be back on Monday where I will continue to answer those questions that you have. So thanks so much for your questions. Thanks for joining. I'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.